I am going to open up the Maplewood Economic Development Authority special meeting. I will call that to order. And City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call for our EDA meeting?
Commissioner Lee.
Present.
Commissioner Villavicencio. Here. Commissioner Cave.
Here.
Commissioner Juniman.
Here.
President Abrams.
I'm here as well. Thank you very much. Commissioners, would someone like to make a motion to approve our EDA agenda?
So moved.
Second. By Cave, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve our agenda for tonight. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next, we need to approve our minutes from our May 27th, 2025 Economic Development Authority special meeting.
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Lee. The motion to approve the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 EDA meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We have no public hearings, no unfinished business. We do have new business tonight. Ms. Parr, this is your topic for us. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. You looked a little, the look on your face was, wait a minute, what am I doing? Okay, Mr. Beatty, this is your topic.
Yes, Madam President and Commissioners, there has been consideration for certifying an EDA levy this year, which is something that the statute allows you to do. Because the EDA has never levied certified a levy, however, the statute requires that in the year in which you intend to do that you notify the county auditor by July 1st of your intent to certify a levy. Doesn't mean that you have to do that. That's a decision that you can make later, but you need to set the stage by notifying the auditor by July 1st. So the resolution before you simply does that and directs staffs to send the resolution to the county auditor, laying the groundwork if you choose later in the year to certify that levy.
Thank you. Mr. Sable, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just note that in a previous organization that I worked for, they missed the statutory deadline and had to redo the entire budget process in December. And so, as we often work, we work ahead. And so, if you want to do this, you can, but you certainly don't have to do that. There is an item on there listed as fiscal impact. The number should be zero because right, it's a decision that comes later. But in conversations with the finance director, we had thought, hypothetically, if you have a 1% increment, or a 1%, it's $318,000. So 2 would be 636. So you would have up to a 2% levy on the EDA. So the true fiscal impact is zero, but that is the potential is somewhere between 0 and 636.
Okay. I really appreciate staff bringing this to us as a tool that obviously we're going to have to discuss this later, but I really appreciate that. Council members, do you have any questions about this? Then would someone like to make the motion?
Motion to adopt the attached resolution entitled Resolution Declaring Intent to Certify Economic Development Authority Levy under Minnesota Statute Section 275067 and affirming boundaries of the Economic Development Authority.
Second.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Cave. The motion as written in our packet. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And next, we have a pretty packed agenda. We have one more topic tonight, the Tax Increment Financing District, number 1-19. This is yours, Ms. Parr.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the EDA. This one is mine. As you likely recall, this is a site you guys know well. It's at 1375, and it is often referred to as the Gladstone House. It's been there for a long time, and it's been unoccupied for a very long time as well. This came before you in 2022. We went out for a competitive RFP, request for proposals process at that time, and we were looking for someone to purchase and develop the site. And we found, and the council and EDA concurred, that Beacon was a match for that, to purchase it and develop the property for an affordable multifamily project. They do own the property now. We no longer own the property. They do, just to clarify that. At that time, they made the city aware that they would likely be asking for tax increment financing, so this is not new information. It also came up as a part of the land development process. You saw this and approved the land use approvals previously in 2023. And that brings us tonight to where we're at in regards to the TIF request. We are lucky enough to have Jason Arsvold from Ellers Public Financial Advisors with us again this evening, and Ron will also assist as helpful, to speak a little bit about the finances and the project itself in relation to the TIF request. Later this evening, as a council, you will have the public hearing. You'll hold that this evening later on. So tonight, this part is just for informational purposes for the EDA, and later on, you'll have the opportunity to open for the public hearing. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Just once again, I'm Jason Arsvold with Ellers. We worked with your staff to put together the TIF plan that is in front of you this evening and work towards the TIF deal that is in place and up for consideration tonight with Beacon specifically. So I'm going to go over just briefly some of the pieces that are before you this evening, predominantly items related to TIF District 19. I'll talk a little bit about the project, about the TIF plan itself that is in front of you for consideration, how we established that but-for test that we talk about, which is that the project wouldn't be moving forward but for the assistance from the city. Summarize that agreement that is up for consideration as well. Talk about some of the actions that are happening this evening and what the next steps will look like. And feel free to stop me along the way here if clarification is needed or you have questions. So just the project itself, I think you're all probably pretty familiar with that by now. But what we're talking about is a 40-unit project that is going to be affordable for rental to those at 30 and 50% of median income. Again, located at 1375 Frost. It's a $22.5 million project. And because it is affordable housing, the project has a big financial gap that needs to be filled from many, many different sources, as you'll see. What we're talking about here, however, for the city's piece of this is tax increment financing, the amount of $200,000, and that is anticipated over a 15-year period. As you'll see, the district can be set up for longer than that, but this amount in those years go back to that RFP that Ms. Parr talked about, which was that when those proposals were considered, their request for assistance was part of that, and they both were asking for the same amount of assistance, and so that's been honored over the years, even though the gap of this project could, obviously be supported at a larger number. And as I mentioned, there are several other funding sources here that we'll see. First, though, we're going to talk about the TIF plan. And so there are two different things that happen with these TIF deals. There's a TIF plan that the city needs to approve, and that's really just what it is. It's your plan for the TIF district. It's got the policy objectives for the project in it. It talks about the geographic location and the parcels that are involved. It sets a maximum budgetary authority for revenues and expenditures. And again, it's a maximum, and you'll see that we're not going to be probably coming anywhere near that maximum, but it's set up that way for flexibility. And it's your planning document. It's what allows for the creation of a new TIF district. What it does not do, what the TIF plan does not do, is identify or grant any specific amount of assistance to the developer. That will have to come through a separate TIF agreement, which is also in front of you for consideration this evening. But there are two separate actions, two separate documents, so just to provide some clarity about that. So the plan itself that you're looking at, it really, as I said, it talks about the geographic area, so we know the site. It's the parcels at 1375 Frost and adjacent rights-of-way. They're just included by virtue of the statute. This is going to be a housing tax increment district. So this is a type of tax increment district that you can establish by virtue of the project that is going within that district meeting certain income restrictions. And this project meets that easily, and so it qualifies for inclusion in a housing tax increment district. And then once that's established, the TIF from the project or the district can pay for certain eligible project costs. And with a housing district, that really is almost any cost associated with developing the affordable housing, including even paying for the bricks and mortar of the building, which is not typical of most TIF districts. And as I mentioned, It's being set up for your flexibility for the 26-year maximum duration, but the amount of assistance anticipated to the project would be done in 15 years. So you would have the opportunity to decide once that's done what you would like to do with that district 15 years from now. There is a maximum budget, as I said, in that plan. It's $1.17 million, and that's based on an $8 million assessed project value. So there's generally a pretty large difference between that assessment and the total development cost, which is, kind of one of the reasons why there's a big gap there. Again, this is the maximum budget. It isn't the amount of money that's going to the developer. It's just the budget within your TIF district that can't be exceeded. We put 3% inflation in there, 5% interest. We run it out for the full 26 years. And that's where you get to that larger number that you see that's within your plan. But the actual assistance that's anticipated in the agreement to the developer is that $200,000 number that we talked about on a present value basis. So that's like in today's dollars, not in the 15 years from now dollars. The plan also contemplates that the assistance to the developer would come in the form of pay-as-you-go tax increment. So just as a reminder, what that means is that the developer has to come up with financing the project cost, that $200,000 up front. And then what you're agreeing to do is to repay them only from the tax increment from the district over that 15-year period. And if for some reason, when you get to the end of that 15 years that you haven't been able to pay off that $200,000 because the tax increment wasn't enough or whatever other reason that might happen out there, the city is not obligated financially to pay any of the other project costs. And so in that way, the project and the TIF piece of it presents no ongoing financial risk to the city. In addition to that, the developer you'll see in the agreement phase of this, also be covering the cost associated with that you're incurring and setting up in this district and the agreement itself. Then the payments to the developer will come from 90% of the tax increment. You'll retain 10%. There are some ongoing administrative items that need to be dealt with over the course of the life of a tax increment district. That gives you the dollars to be able to cover that. And then there'll be base value taxes that will be applied here. There had been zero taxes here, but there will, when the district is certified, the county's required to establish some base value. Those taxes then will be payable to all the taxing jurisdictions, including the city. And then it'll just be the increment that gets captured. So jumping forward to the but-for test, so that's the TIF plan. When you adopt the resolution as a council and the EDA really approving a TIF district, one of the findings that you need to make is that the project wouldn't happen but for the city's tax increment financing assistance. And so what you can see here is that the table is kind of small, and so I'm kind of breaking PowerPoint rules, but I want everyone to understand, and this is in your packet as well in our memorandum about the project, is that because of the nature of this project and its affordability level that it's serving, it is required to find several different sources to cobble together to meet that financing gap that's out there. And so, we took a look at their numbers that they are ultimately going to submit to Minnesota Housing for tax and the budget office for bonds and tax credits, and looked at what their projections are, and are those projections reasonable? Does this project really show a need for assistance? And the simple answer to that is yes. I mean, this is a project that is going to need every penny that it can get if it is to be constructed. The numbers that they're presenting do line up with what we would anticipate to see in the marketplace. It definitely meets that but-for test. And as I said, we're limited here just kind of by virtue of those past agreements to the 15 years of assistance, even though theoretically more could even be justified. The developer will have to still seek out some of the funding sources that are identified here, most notably the low-income housing tax credits that are going to be a big portion of how this gets funded. But the tax increment is going to be a significant portion in terms of how that gets done on a going forward basis, in addition to all those other sources. So again, the analysis supports the need. It meets that statutory but-for test very clearly. And really, primarily, it's because of the affordability that's being provided here from the project. Questions about that or the but-for test? Okay, so I'll just jump to the TIF agreement and just very brief summary. It's a big document, obviously several pages, but a lot of that is very typical for most tax increment agreements. There's insurance provisions and what happens if they default, and those really never change. Some of these are the key business points that are contained in that agreement, just to summarize those for you. Again, I mentioned that the developer will be required to construct the project as has been approved by you all. Ultimately, that'll be something that they have to do. There's a construction commencement date and a completion date, and so they would need to start and complete by those dates in order to be in compliance with the agreement. So this doesn't hang out there forever and ever and ever if for some reason their funding is delayed or whatever the case may be. Then the EDA in that agreement agrees to create a new tax increment district and provide the assistance as I had described, which is the $200,000 TIF pay-as-you-go note payable from 90% of the increment for 15 years at an interest rate of 6%. And current projections show that the increment will be sufficient to cover that over that 15-year period right now. Again, if for some reason it isn't, the EDA and city do not make up the difference. The developer, because the project needs to stay affordable, and there's an annual test for income documentation in order for that thing to stay in a tax increment district, they will be required to annually document that affordability that's been contemplated in the agreement, which right now assumes 19 of the units affordable to those at or below 30% area median income, and then there's 21 units that are at or below 50% of area median income. And then just as an added layer of protection, there's also a look-back provision included. And so all of what I've talked to you about has been based on projections. And as we all know that when we move into the reality of ultimately building this thing, some of these things are likely to change, including potentially the cost of the project, the financial gap that exists, and things of that nature. So there is a provision that will allow the city to review the actual project cost once the project is complete. And if that is less than a certain threshold, there will be an opportunity to reduce the city's TIF portion of the project on a sharing basis with the developer. Then the developer has to obtain all necessary approvals and pay all of your customary fees. And then in addition to that, as I mentioned, that the developer is covering all the costs associated with the TIF transaction itself. So just another layer of cost coverage that's in there. So that's the summary of the agreement. Just briefly about the council and EDA actions tonight. So for tonight, at the EDA here, there is consideration of a resolution that would approve the TIF plan for TIF District number 19. So that's one action here. There is a motion that you all have approving the contract for private redevelopment with Beacon Acquisition. So that's only the EDA that's doing that, not the city. The city will also approve the TIF plan, I should have mentioned, and hold the public hearing. And the reason why that is happening is because the statute requires that the city, not the EDA, actually hold the public hearing, so that's why it's been set up that way. Finally, the EDA will actually has a resolution establishing an interfund loan. So what that does is it allows you to recover any costs that you incur that aren't reimbursed by the developer from future tax increment payments that we're not probably going to see until 2 years from now. So if there are any costs in that interim period that you want to have reimbursed with TIF, the only way for you to preserve your ability to do that is to establish that interfund loan now. So it's just a good practice to do it. It's just a loan that says, you can advance up to $50,000 that can be repaid with future tax increment. Sometimes you don't need it at all, but if you don't establish it within 60 days of making any kind of an expenditure, then you're kind of out of luck. So we just think it's best practice to do it now and have that piece done. So as I mentioned, next steps are mostly administrative, or really are all administrative. Assuming everything gets approved tonight, then the project moves forward as anticipated. There would be a certification of the district, which is the final step to tell the county and the Office of the State Auditor and the state that a new district has actually been created, and their records will reflect that, and they'll know to start collecting increments. So that's a step that the staff and we will help with. And then again, that's will just be planned construction after that in July of 2026. So with that, I'm going to stop, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the facets of the TIF project.
Excellent presentation. Council members, do you have any questions?
Straightforward.
Then we have 3 motions before us. Would someone like to make the first one?
Motion to approve the resolution adopting modifications of the Development District Program for Development District Number 1 and the Tax Increment Financing Plan for Tax Increment Financing District Number 1-19.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lee, seconded by Commissioner Juniman. The motion A, as listed in our council, in our EDA packet. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. There is a second motion, a B motion. Would someone like to make that?
Motion to approve the contract for private development with Beacon Acquisition LLC.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave. Motion B, the motion to approve the contract for private development with Beacon Acquisition, LLC. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. And then finally, our third motion, motion C, would someone like to make that?
Motion to approve the resolution authorizing an interfund loan for advance of certain costs in connection with tax incrementing financing District Number 1-19.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Villavicencio. Motion C is listed in our packet. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much, commissioners. Thank you, Jason, for your presentation. And with that, I'm going to check the agenda because it's been pretty heavy tonight already. And the EDA is adjourned. Thank you very much. We are going to let's take about a 5-minute break, and we will be back for our council meeting.